With that said, though, I mean, you were in Broadway at, I guess some could say, the peak of theater was the 80s. 80s on Broadway, that's the mecca. That was one of the meccas of...
Well, it was the British invasion of musicals.
Yeah.
And long runs started then.
And that's, I don't know, I always looked at that as like such a really interesting era for theater in New York. That was like the epicenter of the world.
Yeah.
What do you remember most? Is there anything that sticks out about being in that whirlwind at that time?
How lucky I was.
Yeah.
That I was doing. I got to do Cats.
Yeah.
You know, and that was a seminal, for what it was. I mean, it was glorified children's theater, yeah, but it was like a real seminal piece of theater. And so it was like, wow, man, I'm going to be working for at least a couple of years, you know. And then lightning struck twice with me being working with the same folks in Les Mis.
Yeah.
That was like, really? Am I really getting to do this again in this piece of theater? I mean, I was so lucky to be in the right place at the right time with the whatever goods they were looking for.
Yeah. Now, Hair, always been one of my favorite productions.
Uh-huh.
I remember my mom is very big into theater, and I've always enjoyed it. She took us to Broadway when we were kids.
Uh-huh.
And I remember it played, I grew up outside of Burlington, Vermont. I remember she took me to Hair. She was a flower child in the 60s.
Uh-huh.
And she took me to Hair when I was probably 8 or 9. Probably the first time I'd seen like a naked body in public. You know what I mean? But I remember how powerful that was, that production. And I asked that with the notion that you being 65, that would mean that you were a teenager going into adulthood as the Vietnam War was going on.
I was in college.
Does this play have any personal meaning to you?
Yeah, this play resonates for me in a very real, I lived it kind of way. In 1968 I was a junior in high school. Then I went to college in the fall of 1969, and
where'd you go to college?
Jacksonville University in Florida, and I remember, you know, getting those draft cards, deciding whether or not we were going to burn them. I remember protesting on the steps of the courthouse in Jacksonville, you know, and being arrested, you know, and you know, well, they put us in a paddy wagon.
Were you a conscientious objector?
I was. I mean, I was just sort of understanding what it all was, and I was jumping on the bandwagon because I knew what was right and I knew what was wrong, but more importantly for me was I had C grades. I wasn't a great student, but they started drafting us out of college, and I got drafted, and I had to go for my pre-induction physical, and was going to go to Vietnam and going to be killed.
Yeah,
that's all we knew. All the other guys that I was living with, you know, we're going to be drafted and we're going to be sent over there to be killed.
Yeah, you didn't see anybody coming back with smiles.
No, you didn't see. No, you did not. And the guys that I knew in my high school who did come back were fucked up.
Yeah.
So
you didn't end up going.
I got my papers to report to the Jacksonville bus terminal on December 17th at 5:30 a.m. and the night before I'd gotten so drunk I overslept and missed it. And I called them up and I said I missed it, and they said, fine, you're going to go in the next month, January 21st. And that year, Richard Nixon gave his State of the Union address and said, we will now be de-escalating. There will be no inductees into the services for the months of January, February, and March. So put the number 365 on your existing number.
Wow.
So that's how I got up going in the Army.
This is me playing devil's advocate. So if you did not get drunk that night and jumped on that bus, you might have been sent over there.
Uh-huh.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
If there any good comes from a hangover, it might have been that.
Preach, man. That's it.
So when you see it on stage now, I wonder if there's any thought process that goes through your head when you compare it to where we are today as like nothing's the same, everything's the same kind of thing.
Well, that's exactly it. Nothing's the same, and everything. Nothing's changed, and everything's changed. The players are different, but the
issues are the same.
The issues are the same. The problems are the same. The politics, the social conscience is the same. All of that's the same. And I cannot believe that we're actually sitting here talking about this in 2017.
Agreed.
That we've been slapped back to 1961.
Yeah.
Practically.
Are you optimistic about the future?
I am hopeful about the future.
I mean, you must see it with the kids.
I do, and I see it with I have 2 daughters that are teenagers, and all you can do is sometimes just worry about your own little area, like New York State. You know, that's a sanctuary state as far as I'm concerned, and you know, and it feels like that's what it's come down to with this administration.
Yeah, I feel that it becomes overwhelming. Where if you try to think about it, you get exhausted mentally. But then I try to think, okay, well, if I can do my part in my own backyard and everyone else does their part in their own backyard to make people feel welcome and at least spread the kindness.
Right.
And not some hokey way, in an honest way where you're actually making an effort in your own backyard, that maybe some good can come of where you're at.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But,
well, that's what hair is all about.
Yeah.
I mean, the show is just about, I know this sounds corny, but it is about love.
Yeah.
You know? There is love and there is power. And you subscribe to one or the other. And you can be conflicted your whole life trying to go back and forth, but at the end of the day, you can only be one of those.
Yeah. And the other thing I wonder too is one of the themes, at least I took away from it, was that struggle of becoming a man or a woman as a teenager to an adult. Mm-hmm. Do the students pick up on that? Because they're right in that spot where they're going from adolescence to adulthood.
Yeah, and a lot of the graduating seniors are getting that's what's happening. It's a rites of passage.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, like Joseph Campbell says, you know, that you got to follow your bliss.
Yeah.
Follow your bliss, man, and that will never go wrong.
Yeah. My last question is, what is a life performing on stage and being involved in theater and with people coming up in the scene, younger folks, college kids, someone who's also seen in your lifespan has been a huge amount of American history. And with all that said, what does being a performer on stage, an actor, taught you about what it means to be a human being?
Good question. I think, well, we talked about it earlier, being in the moment and living in the moment and coming from a place of love. I watched my daughters grow up, and I noticed that when they were in their 5 to 6 to 7, when they were aware of being in the world, they were always living in the moment.
Yeah.
Always living in the moment. Then they get to that teenage thing, and all its peerage and things change. But from like 1 to like 12 or 13, they're always living in the moment. And then the other thing I notice when I see my friends of mine who are older, like in their 70s or 80s, I find that that's what you go back to.
Yeah. Well, it's how you retain the childlike wonder.
Yep.
As an adult.
That's right.
And I wonder too, on top of that, with being an actor, you must, with all these different roles that you play, all these different people, economic classes, whatever, mm-hmm. that there must become a realization at some point that we have a lot more in common than what we're told or think as people.
Yes, we are all the same. We all want the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and we all really just want to be, I keep saying it, you know, I just want to be loved and loved, you know. It's simple. It is simple. It's like dieting or eating correctly.
Civilizations have fallen with that simplicity.
Or because, well, what would you describe? I mean, if you were to take all the money in the world and give everybody in the world $20 on a Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning, by Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning, 1% of those people would have all that money, and everybody, because greed and power is so intoxicating. But what's the irony is, so is love. Yeah. But that's the conundrum. It is the conundrum.